Bill C-38 has been passed by the House and is now just waiting to go through the Senate. The largest, most aggressive bill in our history. And this is, make no mistake about it, a deliberate, pretty much full-out attack on the middle class. The middle class has been falling for years now, and this is just like a punch in the face to the middle class. And it's going to affect a lot of people, not just unemployed people, seasonal workers. It's going to impact tradesmen. And if you're a tradesman or you know someone who is, you might want to listen to this as well if you're new to this information. A lot of people aren't paying much attention to what's going on politically, even though it's impacting them in big ways they're not aware of yet. Or if you're running a small business, this will impact you. It's going to impact your employees, because this is going to force your employees to look for jobs elsewhere, even if they pay less, 70% less, which for someone like me who works for about $14 an hour, that means a minimum wage job. I cannot afford to work for a 20 to 30 hour job for minimum wage. I would lose my apartment. I'd have to move in with family, and then I wouldn't be a tax-paying citizen anymore. I can't afford that. Seasonal work, you're lucky to find a job that I have. But if this bill passes, they may try to force me, while I'm unemployed, to look for work elsewhere. And we're not sure what all this entails yet. The Conservatives have been saying very little about the information. And this is being called the Omnibus Bill for a reason. The wording is not very accurate. It doesn't explain everything. A lot of questions have been posed to the Conservatives to explain this better, and they have failed in many cases to explain what the wording means. It's been kept very vague, but the EI system is going to be drastically changed. And again, this bill impacts far more than people who go on unemployment, but I'll get to one thing at a time. A lot of people in the unemployment offices were laid off. This was before the recent layoffs to government workers. Before that, a lot of people did not realize this, but a lot of people in EI offices were laid off. A lot of whole offices were shut down. If you try to call the official number for EI, you're lucky if you can get through. In fact, you might want to try it. It's just a curiosity, an experiment. Because, I mean, I was in the EI office one afternoon, and they said they tried all afternoon to get through to that number. And this office, unemployment office, was not able to get through, because they had a tricky situation they were trying to resolve, but they could not get through to that number, and they're calling all afternoon. So, talk about major cutbacks. And it's so interesting that they gave me a paper that day telling me about my responsibilities, but also telling me about their responsibilities. And the unemployment, one of their responsibilities that they list is that they're supposed to be accessible to the people. They're not very accessible when you can't even get through to that main number. And then the office may not be able to help you in all cases because they can't get through to get help. So, but after all those cutbacks were made, now Harper wants to put a whole lot more money in and wants to change the EI structure. You see, those people were laid off in those offices on purpose so that he can reform it. It's similar to the RCMP, what he's doing there now, where he's saying that if you can't walk the beat, well then you're useless, and that maybe you should reapply for a job somewhere else. So in other words, RCMP officers who can no longer walk the beat may soon be just doing office jobs if they're lucky to get back hired on doing, obviously they'd be getting paid less. So it's a similar thing that he's doing there to reform the RCMP as he is reforming the unemployment system. And this means a number of things. After 6 weeks or so, maybe 7 weeks, you're going to have to look for a job that pays 70%. And you're supposed to... Again, the details of this are not being well explained, but it's sounding like you're supposed to check twice a day online for jobs. They're going to be sending you this information. You're supposed to check it twice a day. I assume that means just weekdays. Now, not everyone has a computer, and there's talk, although I'm not sure if it's accurate yet, but there's been talk that there's going to be cutbacks to libraries, or specifically to the internet provided on libraries, which would be very ironic. But not that this government gives a damn about the people, and it'll create problems like this for the public, and without giving a damn, it'll make the government look stupid, things like that. But it's because they just don't care. But yeah, you're supposed to look for a job 2 miles away. I'm working at a job that is a half-hour drive away. I'm not exactly sure how many miles it is, but it's more than 2 miles away. Um, and because I wasn't able to get a job in my town, so I'm actually working in a smaller town for my seasonal job because I wasn't able to get not that would provide me with enough hours here in the town I'm living in. So I mean, I'm doing the best I can to pay the bills and whatever. And yet, if they tell me that I need to apply for a minimum wage job that I can't afford, well, what am I supposed, And I mean, so this overhaul is going to change a lot of things. Sounds like it's going to be a more strict and definitely more strict. And this is an attempt to cut back on unemployment. I mean, the Conservatives have said as much. A lot of people are going to be denied their unemployment. And obviously that means there's going to be a lot more poor people and people going to welfare. Now, welfare, that doesn't matter to Harper because that's provincial. From what I understand, the provinces pay for the welfare. On the national level, it's unemployment, and that's what he wants to cut back on. No doubt, things are going to get a lot worse as he takes us further and further into free trade with globalization. Even though he's saying he can't be responsible for the consequences of the global economy, yet he's taking us further and further into the global economy. That's hilarious. That logic is just so profound, isn't it? So yes, I mean, this is being called a direct attack on the shellfish industry, especially mainly here in Atlantic Canada, which is exactly what I'm doing for a living, working in one of those processing plants. So I mean, lovely, that's fantastic. But this is also going to affect not just seasonal workers; it's also going to affect tradesmen. It's also going to have major changes to the environment, and I'll do videos on that in the future. That's a whole other big subject, but basically it's kind of cutting out a lot of groups and studies that are done to make sure that the environment's being respected, that the laws are being followed, etc. And a lot of those are going to be shut down. And obviously, Canada's got a very bad name now. When it comes to the environment, especially because of the tar sands. And no, they're not oil sands, they're tar sands. Any idiot should know the difference between oil and tar. It doesn't matter how much the government calls it oil sands, they're tar sands. The sky's not red and the trees are not purple because Harper keeps saying it is. I've seen even his opponents in the media, parroting that. Oil sands. They're not oil sands, they're tar sands. You can't walk on top of oil. Okay. As for tradesmen, reading from the Huffington Post, where there's no overtime work, there's usually overtime pay. However, an adjustment in the Harper Conservatives' omnibus budget bill may just change that for a number of contract workers. It's known as the Fair Wages and Hours of Labor Act. Its mandate to ensure that contractors working on federal government construction projects must pay their workers the prevailing wage in the provincial plus overtime pay. The law originated in the Great Depression, and that will be changed now with this bill. The move, according to critics, means that certain workers on federal construction projects will no longer be entitled to the provincial prevailing wage, which ranges anywhere from $20 to $30 an hour. Instead, these construction workers could be paid as little as the provincial minimum wage. Usually there's a certain amount that you're supposed to be making, like as a tradesman, as a carpenter. They can't just lower your pay like that. But and when this bill is passed by the Senate, and of course I'm sure as you all realize it will be, this means that as a tradesman, you can suddenly find yourself being paid minimum wage. And you might say, I refuse to work minimum wage, but if someone else is more desperate than you, they might take it. And then you may find yourself having no choice. So there you go. This is an attack on the middle class. I'd like to know what is. And right now, it's been mainstream news that letters have been going out to workers of Parks Canada. They're being told not to speak out against the government. Not just while they're on the job, but not at all against the government. This is because of cutbacks to the parks. And they may be upset. A lot of government workers have been coming out lately saying a lot of things about the Harper government and the way that they run things. And so this is the beginning of the thought police. This is the beginning of Harper cracking down on people, the government workers who are being laid off, speaking out about things. And the thing is that working for the government is not like working for a company or a large corporation. It's the government. It works for us. We pay for it. They are our employees, not vice versa. This is our money, you understand. Unemployment insurance is ours. We pay for it. It's our system. It's not Harper's system to do with whatever the hell he wants. It's not his. It's ours. He is supposed to work for us. He's got this all wrong. He thinks he's the man. This is a power system to control this country, to make us, if he thinks that from his perspective, people don't want to work in whatever, so let's make them work. Let's force them to go back to work. They're just a bunch of lazy whatever. Yeah, that's the typical fascist thinking of someone who has no idea what it's like to be a worker, an employee. Where I work, there are people who are old and should be friggin' retired. There's one man who's got 2 more years to go, and if you were to look at him and to see how he works, he looks like he's 75. He works like he's 75. He can't do the job. He's too old, but he cannot legally retire. People should be able to apply for early retirement. The thing is, there's a difference between working in office work and working in hard labor. After a while, your back gets bad. You have all kinds of health problems. Your hands get screwed up. There are people who are not able to retire yet, who should be retired because they've done their part. They can't do anymore. They can't do the job, but they're kept on out of sympathy. If these companies were to lose that sympathy, they'd be out of a job. And what is a man who is 2 years too young to retire, who isn't able to do anything, even the simplest of work, because he just can't? He's old. He's worked hard all his life, and what is he supposed to do then? Work at McDonald's? How? It's ridiculous. The system needs to change to be more sympathetic and more understanding. There needs to be, people should be able to apply for early retirement. This is heading everything in the exact opposite direction. These people with these nice kosher office jobs have no idea what it's like to spend a lifetime working in labor jobs. And I'm not talking processing plant. I'm talking real hard labor jobs. And what that does to a person, they have no idea what that does to a person physically. Never mind what it does to you mentally. There's a total lack of compassion and understanding. There's a total lack of respect, a total lack of any sense that they are supposed to work for us. We pay for them. This government is so extreme, they're so far right, they do not understand or care about this concept of democracy, the concept that they are being paid as employees for us to represent us. There are representatives, political representatives. They do not see it that way. Harper is looking at this as a political, it's a scheme. It's a power network. On CPAC recently, I believe it was Mulcair that stood up and he spoke against Stephen Harper, and he said that absolute power corrupts absolutely. Of course, you know what he was quoting from. Harper stood up and he recanted by saying a lack of power corrupts. And that, I think, is interesting. The psychology of that statement. The lack of power corrupts. That is a narcissistic statement if I ever heard one. If you're powerful and you're in control, but you can't do any wrong. You can't do wrong if you're in control and you have the power. There's no such thing as corruption. You can break whatever laws you want to break, and that's all fine. How many laws has this so-called conservative party passed that are illegal? I mean, sending out these letters, for example. People have a right to speak against the government, whether they're employees of it or not. People have the right in Canada, certain fundamental freedoms, quote, freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, including freedom of the press and other media of communication. Harper has crippled the CBC, taking away about $200 million from their funding. And now, just recently had an interview with Peter Mansbridge, and it wasn't like any other interview I've seen with him before. No, this time, Peter Mansbridge wasn't, hitting him hard with tough questions. He was trying to look dignified, but he was being subtle. He was being cautious. And Harper looked confident. He was smiling. And you should see that video. I'll link to it in the video information. And even people here on YouTube have fallen for it and said, well, maybe he's not so bad. He looks good in this video. It's got a lot of thumbs up. It's got positive feedback. And usually people hate Harper on YouTube, but in that video, in that interview, he looked good because he was confident, he was smiling, because he knew that Peter Mansbridge was going to have to watch what he said. Harper's got the leash on the CBC. We might as well call it Harper TV now. You might as well call it that. And if you're working for the government, seriously, if you value your job, you better watch what you say openly about the government. Or you might lose your job. Is this the Canada that you once knew? And what are you prepared to do? What are you prepared to do for your country? To stand up, to speak out, to try to get people to see what's happening, to pay more attention. This is bad, people. This is bad.